Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making the number 3 in the number box series. If you've watched any of the other videos, we're going to be using the same construction method and we're using the same overall size of front and back panel so that the boxes are on the same scale. As always, I have used full eighths where I can in this particular box for the measurement, so you can scale up or scale down the size of the box as necessary. So let's start by making the template, which you'll then draw around to create your front and back panels. The starting cardstock is 4.5 by 7.5. Along the 4.5 inch side, you'll mark from top to bottom at 1.5 and 3. Along the long side, mark from top to bottom at 1.5, 3, 4.5 and 6. You'll then make a mark along the top edge at 3/4 and 6 3/4, and you'll then score down to the first score line only at 2 3/8 and 5 1/8. Rotate 180 degrees, make a pencil mark along the top edge at 3/4 and 6 3/4. Make a line at the 3 3/4 inch mark down to your first score line here, and then measure down this score line and make a mark at 1/16 of an inch under 3/4 of an inch. And what that will do is when we join these pieces up, this will make this length here 1 inch. You then want to go around, as I've done on this template, joining up the various marks along the outer edge to create your number 3. You'll then cut along the red lines, and that will give you a piece which looks like this. And what we're now going to do is create the strips which are going to run around the outside of the box to join the front and the back panels together. As I've said in previous videos, if you don't want to create long strips, these are actually a good way of using up scraps of your cardstock. For instance, you might cut this first strip 1 5/8 of an inch plus a 1/2 inch for a glue tab, and you might choose to cut each of the pieces individually. That's obviously your choice, and you can change up the opening placement if you so wish by adjusting the length of any of the strips accordingly. As always, the first thing I would say is measure each of the length of the sides of the pieces on your particular front and back panel, because the strips I'm going to give you and the length of strips and the scoring I'm going to give you is based on the length of my piece. So if yours is slightly different, you will need to adjust the placement of your scoring and the length of your strips accordingly. In my case, my strips are all 2 inches wide because I'm making a 1 inch wide treat box. I've therefore scored at 1/2 inch and 1.5 inches to give me my 1 inch width in the middle and a 1/2 inch glue tab either side. You can obviously adjust the depth or the width of your strips of your boxes as you so choose. Strip A is 10.5 inches long, scored at 1 5/8, 3 1/8, 4, 5.5, 7, 8.5 and 10. Strip B is 10 5/8 of an inch long, scored at 1.5, 3, 4.5, 5 3/8, 6 7/8, 8.5, and 10 1/8. Strip C, which is the blue sections, is 10 1/8 of an inch long, scored at 1.5, 3 1/8, 5 3/8, 6 3/8, 7 3/8, and 9 5/8. And finally, strip D, which incorporates the opening, is 5 1/4 inches long, scored at 1 5/8, 3 1/8, and 4 3/4. If you've watched any of the other videos, you now know the construction method, so you can ignore the rest of the video and happily carry on making your particular box. We're now going to do our folding and burnishing, and on all pieces you can fold and burnish the long side glue tabs. And what you may want to do is you start to burnish the verticals score lines here, is to burnish the pieces in the direction that they're going to sit in on the template. For instance, this first score line here would be a mounting fold. The next one is going to be a mounting fold. So that's going to come around like so. The next piece is going to come up and that is going to be a valley fold. Like so. So you may want to work your way around, burnishing your pieces to start to manipulate the side panels into the shape that they're going to be when they fit onto the front and back panels. So do that with all 4 pieces. Once you've done that, we will cut our various glue tabs. On strips A, B and C, on all pieces, both sides, we're going to cut into the 1/2 inch glue tab along our score lines to separate each of these sections. And then from each section, we're going to take a wedge. So we'll do that all the way along on both sides. At the end of strips A, B and C, where we have our 1/2 inch section, we will remove the bottom left and right hand squares, like so, and take a wedge from the end. So this is creating the glue tab, which is going to add the strips together when we start to add them into the box. In addition, in strip A, opposite the glue tab, you may want to add a finger notch into this end piece here. If I just show you on the number 1, that's just going to create this little section here, which is going to help you get in to get the lid open. So repeat that process of cutting the glue tabs along the sides on pieces A, B and C. When you come to piece D, fold and burnish, cut up the score lines into the side panels like so. And I'm only going to take a wedge from the left hand and the middle sections. So this piece at this end is effectively the lid of the box. I'm going to take a very slight angle off of the back of those flaps, like so, but I'm going to cut straight up the score lines and leave these vertical, and I will then trim those when I can see how much I need to take off to allow the lid to fit into the box nicely. I'm going to remove the bottom left and right hand squares, like so. And rather than be a glue tab, this flap is what's going to sit down inside the lid. So you can leave that straight, you could shape it. My personal preference is to round off the corners and just add some shape into that flap. Once your pieces are all cut, it's just a case of adding glue to the glue tabs and securing the various sections into place. So I'm going to work my way around. When you get to the end of the strip, take your next strip. I'm going to secure that into place and then continue my way around until I get to the last section at the top. Once you get to the last section, we're going to join the piece onto section C, and we're going to add glue to 2 glue tabs only and make sure that we leave this piece free. I'm going to completely move this out of the way, push the tabs down, and where any tabs overlap, I'm just going to join them together with some glue so that the 3 stays in shape. And then I'll use my construction glue, which will give me more wiggle room, more time to manipulate the piece on the top. So I'm going to add that all the way around, and then I can take my second piece and I'm going to add that onto the top. I've got time to manipulate the piece into place, and just take your time working your way around, getting it as lined up as you can. If you have any elements where the front panel overhangs, you can obviously go in and trim that after. So for instance, you can see I've got a slight overhang here. I can just go in with my craft knife or my scissors and chop that off once that's dry. So I can check how my lid sits in, and I'm just going to take the slightest wedge off of the front of here so that that goes in more easily. So that now sits in there nicely like so. Whilst that's drying, we'll cut the matte layer, which is going to sit on the top like so. The matte layer, which will have a 1/8 of an inch border around the edge, is cut from a piece which is 4 1/4 by 7 1/4. Along the short side, mark from top to bottom at 1 1/4. That's going to create this line down here. 1 3/8, which is going to be where the top comes across here. 1 1/2, which is going to be for this line here. 2 7/8, which is where the top comes down here, and 3 inches, which is going to be this line here. Along the long side, mark at 3/4 of an inch and mark at 6 1/2 inches along the top. At 1 1/4 inches, draw from top to bottom. At 3 inches, draw from top to bottom. At 4 1/4 inches, draw from top to bottom. And at 6 inches, draw from top to bottom. And then at 2 1/8, draw down to the first score line, which will be the 1 1/4 inch score line, and 5 1/8 draw down to the first score line, which will be the 1 1/4 inch score line. Rotate the piece 180 degrees. You're then going to make a mark along the top edge at 1/16 under 3/4 of an inch, 1/16 under 2 7/8 of an inch, 3 5/8 of an inch, 4.5 inches and 6.5 inches, and then down the 3 5/8 inch mark you'll mark at 3/4 of an inch, and that will give you this point here, and you can then join up all the various lines to give you your template. And then when you cut that out, that's going to sit on the front like so. And remember, if you're cutting it from pattern paper, you'll cut one where the 3 will be face up and the pattern paper's face up, and the second where the 3 will be in this orientation and the pattern paper will be face up. That will give you your pattern paper in the right orientation so that it's facing outwards on the side of the box. So here's the number 3 again with the opening at the top. I'll just bring in the number 1 so you can see how they sit side by side. They're the same scale, the same height, the same width, and these two are the same depth. So there's our latest number. The next in the series will be the number 8. So if you'd like to see the number 8, please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out. And until next time, thanks for watching.